Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Bible, Your Biography podcast. This podcast is devoted to understanding Scripture as a psychological and spiritual revelation of consciousness, as taught by Neville Goddard. Here, the Bible is not approached as history, doctrine, or external religion. It is approached as the story of you. It is your biography. The pattern of Scripture is unfolding within you. In the previous episode, we explored the Old Testament as the formation and conditioning of identity, and how each book correlates to a state of consciousness. In this episode, we move into the New Testament, and the New Testament is not a continuation of history. It is the unveiling of one's true identity. It is the movement from identification within states of consciousness to the recognition of what you are beyond those states. The Old Testament is the preparation. The New Testament is the awakening. And just as before, the names of the books are not arbitrary. They are symbolic. They describe precise stages in the realization of consciousness. The New Testament represents the shift from trying to change states to recognizing the source of all states of consciousness. This is what Neville referred to as the promise. It is not manifestation. It is not improvement. It is revelation. The realization that I am is the cause, and more deeply, I am is not the identity you constructed. It is the awareness behind it. The New Testament describes how this recognition unfolds. Matthew is the structured recognition. Matthew represents structure and fulfillment. It represents awakening in an ordered way. Psychologically, this is the stage where awareness begins to recognize that everything follows a pattern. Nothing is random. There is alignment between inner state and outer experience. Matthew reflects the beginning of understanding that identity is not accidental. All of the Gospels represent the awakening of identity. Mark represents direct action and immediacy. This is awakening without delay. No process, no gradual buildup, just recognition. Awareness sees itself directly. This reflects moments of sudden clarity. Luke is the internalization. Luke represents inner development and refinement. Awakening begins to deepen. It is no longer a moment. It becomes something that is integrated. This is where awareness stabilizes in recognition. John is pure realization, the realization of oneness. John represents that I and my Father are one. This is not symbolic. It is direct knowledge, or direct knowing rather. Identity collapses into awareness itself. This is the clearest expression of awakening. The book of Acts is the expression of awakening. Acts represents the natural expression of realization. Nothing is being forced. Nothing is being practiced. Awareness expresses itself through life. This is not about doing, it is about being. Life begins to reflect the recognition that has taken place. The book of Romans is understanding the law internally. Romans represents this internal understanding, not as a technique, but as a principle. This is where consciousness sees clearly. States produce experience. Identity organizes reality. This is clarity without confusion. Corinthians is correction and alignment. Even after awakening begins, there are areas of misalignment. Old patterns may still appear. This stage refines understanding. It corrects subtle misunderstandings. Galatians is freedom from structure, freedom from rigid systems, freedom from imposed identity. Consciousness is no longer bound by external rules. This is the release of structure. Ephesians represents identity in its true form, no longer defined by roles or states of consciousness, but by awareness itself. This is stabilization. And in Philippians, there's peace and stability. Philippians represents stability and statelessness, not because circumstances are controlled, but because identity is no longer dependent on them. This is internal consistency. Colossians represents completeness. Nothing is missing. Nothing needs to be added. This is the recognition of wholeness. Thessalonians represents expectation and recognition. The recognition of what is unfolding, not in the future, but now. Awareness becomes steady. Timothy, Titus, and Philemon represent integration. These teachings are no longer separate. They are lived. There is consistency between knowing and being. Hebrews represents transition beyond identity, moving beyond previous identity structures. This is the full shift out of identification with states. James represents application, the expression of understanding. Not effort, but natural expression. Awareness acts without conflict. Peter represents stability after realization. Awareness is no longer fluctuating. It remains. John, the epistles, represents reinforcement of oneness. These letters reinforce a oneness, identity, awareness, and the fact that there is no separation. This is clarity. Jude represents final correction, removing the last distortions, ensuring clarity remains. And Revelation is the unveiling, the full realization of identity, the collapse of separation, the end of seeking. This is not symbolic fulfillment. It is experiential. It is what Neville described as the promise fulfilled. The complete New Testament pattern, when seen together, the New Testament reveals recognition, awakening, stabilization, expression, understanding, correction, freedom, identity, peace, completion, integration, transition, application, stability, clarity, and fulfillment. This is the movement beyond identity. The Old Testament is formation, conditioning, instability, and repetition. The New Testament is recognition, awakening, and fulfillment. Together, they form a complete cycle. When understood, this changes how you read Scripture. You are not waiting for awakening. You are recognizing stages. You begin to see where you are, what is unfolding, what is stabilizing. This is no longer theory. It becomes visible. The New Testament is not a story about someone else. It is a revelation of what you are. The names are not labels. They are markers of the journey. And when seen clearly, Scripture becomes direct, immediate, personal. Sit with this information in your own time. Either it will resonate in this moment, or it will not. If it does not resonate, then it is simply a seed of remembrance, meant to be acknowledged at a later point in time on your own journey. Otherwise, you would not be here listening to this episode today. So let the information unfold without force. And thank you for sharing this space with me. If this brought clarity, then you're welcome to explore more here on the channel or on the Bible, Your Biography website. There's a lot of information there that I have not yet shared here on the channel. I will at a future time, but there is a difference in, there's more information currently available on the website is what I'm getting at. So again, this is not something that you achieve. It is something that you recognize. So thank you again, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye now.